Most people who are gaining weight believe they are eating well. A 2021 survey by the International Food Information Council found that 73% of adults who described their diet as healthy were simultaneously consuming foods and habits that nutrition researchers classify as direct contributors to fat storage and metabolic dysfunction. But here is the thing. The habits making you fatter are not the obvious ones. They are not the late-night junk food or the weekend takeaway. They are the habits you are proud of. The ones that feel like discipline. The ones you have been doing consistently for months while quietly wondering why the results are not matching the effort. Today I am breaking down the 5 eating habits that look the healthiest and are quietly doing the most damage inside your body. The number most people use to judge whether they are eating correctly is calories. 1,500, 1,200, 2,000, whatever a calculator or an app told them to hit. Calorie counting is the most widely adopted dietary strategy in the world. According to a 2023 report by the Global Wellness Institute, over 40% of adults in developed countries actively track their caloric intake at some point each year. And calories matter. Energy balance is real. But calorie counting creates a blind spot almost no one in mainstream health media talks about. It treats all calories as identical. A 200-calorie serving of almonds and a 200-calorie low-fat fruit yogurt register the same in your app. But inside your body, they trigger completely different hormonal responses, completely different insulin curves, and completely different instructions sent to your fat cells about whether to store or release energy. The calorie number tells you how much potential energy is in the food. It tells you nothing about what that food does to your fat storage hormones in the 6 hours after you eat it. If you have been tracking calories carefully and still not losing fat, the number is not the problem. What is inside the number is the problem. And that is exactly where the 5 habits live. Habit number 1. Eating low-fat everything. This is the habit that has caused the most widespread nutritional damage of any dietary trend in modern history. The low-fat dietary movement began in the 1970s following research, later found to be significantly flawed and commercially influenced, linking dietary fat to heart disease. Food manufacturers responded by producing thousands of low-fat product versions. Low-fat yogurt, low-fat dressing, reduced-fat crackers, fat-free ice cream. Every category got a leaner version. Every leaner version got a health claim on the label. Here is what they did not tell you. When manufacturers remove fat from food, the product loses its flavor. To compensate, they add sugar, sometimes under recognizable names, more often under names most people do not identify in a supermarket aisle. Maltodextrin, dextrose, corn syrup solids. Fruit juice concentrate. A 2016 analysis published in JAMA Internal Medicine revealed that the sugar industry had actively funded nutritional research for decades specifically to shift blame for obesity from sugar to dietary fat. The science that made low-fat eating mainstream was, in significant part, commercially manufactured. Here is what the actual biology shows. Dietary fat does not directly cause fat storage. Insulin does. And sugar, not fat, is the primary driver of insulin secretion. When you eat a low-fat product loaded with added sugar, insulin spikes. Elevated insulin signals your fat cells to store energy and simultaneously shuts down fat burning. You are storing more and burning less at the same time, triggered by a product you chose specifically because it looked healthier. The low-fat yogurt many people eat every morning. Check the sugar content right now. Many leading brands marketed as healthy contain between 15 and 26 grams of added sugar per serving. More sugar than in many chocolate bars. Arriving and packaging your brain classifies as a health choice, so you never emotionally compensate for it. A 31-year-old woman switches everything to low-fat versions 3 years ago. Her grocery basket looks responsible. She reads labels. She works out. She has not lost a kilogram in 18 months and cannot understand why. Her combined daily sugar load from low-fat products has kept her insulin chronically elevated. And chronically elevated insulin is the most direct driver of fat storage the human body has. Fat did not make you fat. The industrial replacement for fat did. Habit number 2. Eating too much fruit. Fruit is not bad for you. This is not an anti-fruit argument. This is a fructose argument. Fruit contains fructose, a sugar that, unlike glucose, can only be metabolized by your liver. When fructose arrives at the liver faster than it can process it, the excess is converted directly into fat through a process called de novo lipogenesis. A 2013 study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that moderate daily fructose consumption produced measurable increases in liver fat and circulating triglycerides within just 8 weeks. Someone who cuts out processed food and replaces all their snacks with fruit feels clean about it. But a banana contains around 14 grams of sugar, an apple around 19 grams, a cup of grapes around 23 grams. An evening smoothie with mango, banana, and pineapple can easily contain 45 to 55 grams of sugar consumed in under 2 minutes. Across a day of eating fruit the way health-conscious people typically eat it, total fructose intake can exceed the threshold at which the liver begins converting meaningful amounts to fat, all while the person believes they are eating impeccably. The critical distinction is whole fruit versus juice or smoothies. Whole fruit chewed slowly delivers fructose alongside intact fiber that slows absorption and moderates how quickly fructose hits the liver. Once you blend fruit at high speed, that fiber protection is disrupted. Fructose reaches the liver rapidly, sometimes as fast as a sugar-sweetened drink. And you consume far more fructose per minute than you would with whole fruit. The green smoothie you make every morning as a healthy start to your day may be the single highest fructose event in your entire diet. You have been logging it with a green checkmark. Stop here for a moment. The next 2 habits are the hardest to hear. Not because they are complicated. Because they are things most people have been specifically told are good for them. By doctors, by nutritionists, by fitness accounts with millions of followers, and by the same health industry that told you fat was the enemy. These habits feel like the most responsible things you can do. Changing them feels counterintuitive, but the research behind them is consistent, replicated, and largely ignored because it challenges products that generate significant commercial revenue. Stay with this. Habit number 3. Eating every 2 to 3 hours to boost your metabolism. This advice has been repeated so many times, it has achieved the status of settled fact. Eat small meals frequently. Keep your metabolism fired up. Never let yourself get hungry. 6 small meals is better than 3 large ones. It is almost entirely wrong. The idea that frequent eating stokes your metabolic rate is based on a misapplication of the thermic effect of food. The energy your body uses to digest a meal. Yes, digestion burns some calories. But total thermic effect across a day is determined by total food volume and composition, not how many times you eat it. Splitting the same food into 6 small meals produces essentially the same daily thermic effect as eating it in 2 larger meals. A 2010 review in the British Journal of Nutrition found no meaningful difference in metabolic rate between people eating 2 versus 6 meals per day when total intake was controlled. What frequent eating does reliably change is your insulin profile. Every time you eat, even a rice cake, even a piece of fruit, even a clean protein bar, insulin is released. While insulin is elevated, fat burning is hormonally blocked. Fat oxidation requires insulin to be genuinely low. If you are eating every 2 to 3 hours from waking to sleeping, you are spending the majority of your day in a state where accessing stored body fat for fuel is biologically very difficult, regardless of how clean or carefully portioned each meal is. A 2022 study in the New England Journal of Medicine compared 3 meals per day against 6 smaller meals with identical total calories over 12 weeks. The 3-meal group showed significantly greater improvements in insulin sensitivity and fat mass reduction. Same calories. Completely different hormonal environment. Completely different fat loss outcome. Eating constantly to stay healthy is one of the most metabolically damaging pieces of advice ever normalized into mainstream health culture. And it has been normalized precisely because it sells protein bars, snack products, and the idea that you need to eat 6 times a day to function well. Habit number 4, choosing whole grain everything. Whole grains are better than refined grains. That is true. More fiber, more micronutrients, slower digestion. The comparison is real. But the comparison that matters for fat storage is the actual glycemic response whole grain food produces in your body, and whether the health framing is causing you to eat significantly more of it than you would otherwise. Whole grain bread has a glycemic index of around 50 to 65. White bread sits at 70 to 75. The difference exists. But both still produce meaningful blood sugar and insulin responses, particularly in real-world portion sizes, eaten without protein or fat to slow absorption. The behavioral mechanism is what turns this into a problem. People who switch to whole grain products tend to eat more of them because the health label removes the portion break. White bread gets rationed. Whole grain bread gets eaten freely. The fiber advantage at 1 slice does not scale linearly to 4 slices, and a large portion of whole grain bread eaten alone still produces enough of an insulin response to maintain fat storage signaling. A 2019 study published in Cell used continuous glucose monitors across 800 participants and found enormous individual variation in blood glucose responses to identical foods. Some participants spiked dramatically higher from whole grain bread than from white rice. Others showed the reverse. The glycemic index is a population average. Your body's response may be substantially different from that average depending on your gut microbiome, your current insulin sensitivity, the time of day, and what you ate in the hours before. The label that reads multigrain, seeded, high fiber, or ancient grain is a marketing signal, not a guaranteed metabolic outcome. Treating any food as consequence-free, because a health claim says so, is the exact mechanism by which it quietly becomes a fat-storing habit. Now zoom out from your plate entirely. The World Health Organization's 2023 Global Nutrition Report identified countries with the lowest rates of metabolic disease: Japan, South Korea, Mediterranean populations. And the common thread was not primarily what they were eating. It was what they were not doing. They were not consuming industrially processed, low-fat alternatives with hidden sugar. They were not grazing every 2 hours. They were not drinking blended fruit as a health practice. They were not treating whole grain products as consequence-free staples. They were eating single-ingredient whole foods in natural portions, within compressed eating windows, with long natural gaps between meals. No tracking app. No protein bar in the gym bag. Just real food in a rhythm the human hormonal system was built across thousands of years to handle. The habits making you fatter in 2026 were not chosen carelessly. They were engineered to feel like discipline. Understanding that does not make you naive. It makes the information environment the problem, not you. Even knowing all of this, most people find these habits genuinely hard to change, not from lack of motivation, but because these habits are identity-level behaviors. Reaching for the low-fat option feels like discipline. Making a fruit smoothie feels like self-care. Eating every few hours feels like listening to your body. Changing them does not just feel inconvenient, it feels like becoming a less healthy version of yourself. Psychologists call this the health halo effect. A 2006 study by Cornell University food psychologist Brian Wansink found that labeling foods as healthy caused participants to underestimate calorie content by up to 35% and consume significantly larger portions than identical foods without the health label. The health halo is not just a perception bias. It is a behavioral one that directly increases consumption. And the food industry has spent enormous resources understanding and leveraging it. Every low-fat, high-fiber, natural, whole grain label exists partly to lower your psychological brake and get you to eat more of the product. Your healthy habits are being commercially engineered to feel virtuous. That feeling is the product. Habit number 5, rewarding exercise with food. This one operates almost entirely below conscious awareness. You work out. You feel the effort. You feel you have earned something. a protein bar after the gym, a smoothie on the way home, a slightly larger dinner because today you trained. None of those choices feel like indulgence. They feel like proportionate, responsible responses to genuine physical effort. But the arithmetic is quietly unfair to everyone operating inside it. A 2009 study in PLOS 1 placed two groups on an identical outdoor walking route. One group was told it was a fun scenic walk. The other was told it was a fitness workout. Afterward, both were offered food. The workout group consumed 35% more calories than the scenic walk group. Same physical activity. The psychological expectation of having exercised, the sense of deserving a reward, produced measurable overconsumption before the food was even on the table. A 45-minute moderate run burns approximately 350 to 450 calories per American College of Sports Medicine data. A standard post-workout protein smoothie from most gym chains contains 350 to 650 calories. A popular protein bar contains 200 to 380 calories. A slightly larger dinner adds another 200 to 300 calories. The post-workout ritual that feels like responsible recovery is, for a large proportion of people, consuming more energy than the workout burned, while simultaneously closing the fat-burning window the exercise worked to open. Because exercise creates a hormonal window in the hours after a session where fat oxidation is naturally elevated. Eating a carbohydrate-containing meal immediately after closes that window by elevating insulin and redirecting the body back into storage mode. You trained for 45 minutes to open the fat-burning window. Then you ate a smoothie and closed it within 15 minutes. Exercise is one of the most powerful tools available for metabolic health and body composition. But exercise combined with food reward systematically cancels the metabolic benefit you worked to create. Quietly. Every session. And it feels responsible the entire time. So here is where everything closes. 5 habits. All look healthy. All are making fat loss harder. Low-fat products secretly replacing fat with sugar and keeping insulin elevated. Excess fruit and liquid fructose overwhelming the liver and triggering fat production. Constant eating blocking fat burning across your entire waking day. Whole grains eaten in quantities that eliminate their fiber advantage. And food rewards after exercise that erase the hormonal benefit the workout spent 45 minutes creating. None of these are character flaws. They are the predictable result of decades of commercial nutritional advice designed to sell products, not to explain what is actually happening inside your body. The one thing to do right now, before changing your workout, before adjusting your meal plan, before downloading another app, is this. Go to your kitchen and read the sugar content on every product carrying a health claim on its label. Low fat, high fiber, natural, whole grain, protein, enriched. Read every one. Add the numbers across everything you consume in a typical day. Do not change anything yet. Just find the actual number and look at it clearly. Because the gap between the diet you believe you are eating and the diet your body is actually processing almost always lives in that number. And once you see it, without any packaging to soften what it means, what would you actually be willing to change first? Around 2:30, the low-fat history section risks feeling like a lecture before personal relevance is established. Fix. Lead with the yogurt sugar shock first, then explain the history behind why. Reverse the order. Personal surprise first, context second. Around 8:00, the whole grain section is the most nuanced and arrives when attention is thinning. Fix. Open with the most counterintuitive line first. Whole grain bread can spike your blood sugar almost as high as white bread. Here is the 2019 Cell study that proved it. The counterintuitive claim resets attention before the explanation begins. Around 14:00, the global comparison briefly shifts away from the personal habit-by-habit rhythm. Fix. Name the 5 habits directly inside the global section. The countries with the lowest obesity rates are not eating low-fat products, grazing every 2 hours, or drinking their fruit. Ground the global data in what the viewer just learned.